Good day. So in here I will be discussing the animal tissues and organ system. So this is a rather long video or rather long lecture, so I'll be dividing it into 4 parts. So the lecture is from the Biology, the Unity and Diversity of Life 15th edition. So the animal body plan. So in animals, development produces a body with multiple types of cells. So as you can see, animals are multicellular organisms, and you have different types of cells. Each of them have their own specific function. So tissues are cells of a similar type that interact in a collective task. So we have several types of tissues. We have the epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and the nervous tissue. So these are the 4 major classifications of tissues in the body. So as a summary, so we have the epithelial tissue, which functions as a protection, so protective covering, protective layer. So it also has functions in secretion and absorption of fluids. So examples of epithelial tissues, you can find them in the epidermis, which is the outer layer of the skin, the endothelium, the lining of your blood vessels, the lining of the gut, and linings of the lungs. And then you have the connective tissue. This is one of the most diverse types of tissue. It functions in structural support and connection. So we can have loose connective tissue, such as your blood. Blood is a type of connective tissue. And then we also have the dense types of connective tissue, especially the bone, the tissues in the bone, and then the cartilage, and also adipose tissues. And then we have muscle tissue. The muscle tissue is a specialized type of tissue that has the capability to contract. So it can contract to bring about movement of the body or the components. So you can find muscle tissues in the skeletal muscles, the cardiac muscles, and the smooth muscles. Basically, your gut, the digestive system itself, the gastrointestinal tract has muscle tissue lining. And then finally, we have the nervous tissue. So another specialized type of tissue. They can detect stimuli, they process information, and coordinate responses. So they can send and receive signals. So the examples of nervous tissue, you have the white matter and the gray matter in the brain, and the spinal cord, and your peripheral nerves. So the organ is a structural unit consisting of 2 or more tissues. So the organ is capable of carrying out specific tasks. And then higher hierarchy to the organ is the organ system. You have 2 or more organs and other components that interact physically, chemically, or both to perform a specific task. So example of that is the circulatory system. The circulatory system consists of your heart, tissues, and the blood vessels. So as part of the circulation, they transfer gases and solutes to and from body cells. So these are the hierarchy of the structural organization of your body. So you have the cell, the smallest function, the basic function of a living organism. Collection of cells working together, similar cells working together. You have the tissue, and then 2 or more tissues working together to form a function. You have the organ, and then several organs and other components working together to form a specific task. You have your organ system, and of course, the organ systems makes up the full human body. So the animal body is mainly fluid by weight. So actually around 74 to 75% of your body is made up of water. So the extracellular fluid is the environment in which your cells live. So it baths the cells and carries away waste. So for cells to survive, they must stay within a narrow range of solid concentration and temperature. That's why, especially in the summer, so the dehydration and sunstroke is a problem, because dehydration occurs when you have limited, or the extracellular fluid becomes lower than normal, and your body cannot function well. Same goes for the heat stroke. Heat stroke is a combination of dehydration and higher temperature. The body cannot cope. So anatomy refers to the structure, and physiology refers to the function. So the anatomy and physiology of the body plans are genetically determined. They vary between individuals and become optimized for specific environments. So example of that is your diffusion rate affecting body size and shape. So each of us has our own diffusion rate. It varies. So you have mechanisms are evolved to increase the diffusion rate for larger body sizes. So an example of that is the ants versus the humans. So the ants do not have a lung. They do not have lungs. So insects mainly do not have lungs. So instead, they breathe through openings in their shells or the exoskeleton openings. So they can do that because they're very small. So it's very easy for air to diffuse throughout the body. Whereas for humans, we are large. We cannot rely on just holes in our body to diffuse oxygen. So we need to have specialized organ system for that, in particular the circulatory system. So the evolution modifies existing structure. It does not always result in the optimal structure. So lungs evolved when aquatic vertebrates made the move to land. So lungs evolved from pouches in the gut. So that's the belief. If you subscribe to the theory of evolution, it's actually the belief of that. So the human throat connecting both digestive tract and respiratory tract is actually a problem. It can sometimes result the choking is a hazard for humans, whereas choking is not a hazard for dogs and cats. Now, epithelial tissue is a sheet-like layer of cells. So we will now be discussing about the tissues. So the type of tissue, the first one is epithelial tissue. So epithelial tissue is the sheet-like layer of cells with little extracellular matrix between them. So we have, since it's a sheet-like, so you have two surfaces, the apical surfaces, the outer surface that faces the outside world, and the basal surface, which secretes the basement membrane, and that is where your cells adhere to. So examples of epithelial tissue in humans, you have the skin, the hair, and the nails. So epithelial tissue may be arranged as a single layer or a multiple layer. So we have squamous epithelium cells. They are flattened and scale-like. If you look at them in a microscope, the cells are flattened. They are like scales. And then you have the cuboidal epithelial cells. So if you look at them in the microscope, they are cubical. They are usually portrayed as cubical, but they are cylindrical in reality. They just look cubical because you look at it in a cross-sectional way. And then you have the columnar. They are very tall. They are similar to cuboidal but longer. So, or rather, very taller, much taller. So here are the tissue examples. So these are the actual microscopic slides of those tissues. So these are squamous tissues. So as you can see, they are flattened. So the three-dimensional representation for that, you have flattened cells that are scale-like, and then you have the simple cuboidal cells. They are they look like cubes. So they are more of rectangles than squares. So these are the cuboidal cells, and then you have your columnar. So the columnar are very tall. So this is an example of epithelial tissue obtained from the linings in your jaw gum. So these are your cells. They are very longer. They are very tall. So that is the three types of epithelial tissues. So, simple squamous epithelium facilitates in the exchange of materials, mainly the gases and the nutrients. Because they are flattened, the gas and nutrients can diffuse easily through them. So, we have stratified squamous epithelium. They are thicker and can have protective functions. Example is the outermost layer of your skin. Then we have the cuboidal and columnar. They function more on movement, absorption, and secretion. So, they have cilia and microvilli. So usually they are found in the linings of your intestines. So tight junctions occur only on epithelial tissue. If you remember the lecture about the cells, the specialized structure in the cells, you have the tight junction, the three types of junctions: tight, adhering, and the gap. So you have the tight junctions, which are the waterproof junctions. So they occur only on epithelial tissue because you need them to be waterproof. So plasma membranes of adjacent cells are connected securely. So the fluids cannot flow, hence they are waterproof. So example of that is the lining of the gut, which functions as the barrier. So the interior cannot, the liquid interior cannot easily enter your intestinal tissue inside. So the adhering junctions occur where cells experience mechanical stress. So they connect plasma membrane of adjacent cells, but they do not form a seal layer. So they are mostly on, they can allow fluids to pass through, but they must be able to resist stress, mechanical movement. Then we have the gland cells. Gland cells, they secrete substances outside the cell. So we have two types of glands, the exocrine and the endocrine glands. Exo, they have ducts and tubes that directly deliver their secretions to their intended target. For example, the salivary gland is an exocrine gland. So the secretion of that is the saliva, so it directly releases through the duct to the interior of your mouth. And then we have the endocrine glands. The endocrine glands do not have ducts. So how do they manage to what happens now to their secretions? So the endocrine glands release their secretions directly to the body through the circulatory system, through the blood vessels. So it's actually the blood vessels that allows that circulates, or that acts the transportation of their secretions. So here is the example of your epithelial tissue. So this is your salivary gland. So they secrete saliva. So you have a duct there towards the interior of your mouth. And then in contrast, you have the endocrine gland, this one, the thyroid gland. So they do not have any ducts, as you can see. So no ducts. In response, they just directly release their hormones, their secretions to the blood vessels. So epithelial tissues are constantly renewed. So we have skin cells and the intestinal linings. You have sheddings. It's usually shed and then renewed. So many cell divisions provide opportunity for DNA errors. So that's why one of the more common cancers are skin cancer and the cancer in the gastrointestinal tract, colon cancer. So carcinoma is the epithelial cell cancer. So it makes up nearly almost all skin cancers and most breast and lung types of cancers. So that's it for this part of the lecture. So in the next part, we will be discussing about the rest of the types of tissues, the connective tissue, the muscle tissue, and the nervous tissue.